Welcome to Experimental History. We're going to learn about art, design, ideas throughout history. We're going to attempt them ourselves on a base level of not really understanding much, and then we're going to dive into it, do some research, see if we can get a better understanding of what's going on, and then jump back into it and try it again with the knowledge we've gained and learned about, and see if we can do a better job. But we're just going to jump right in and get to it. So I've now cut up all the pieces to what I'm going to build. Just rough sizes of close to what they should be, I think. Not a specific size. These are a little bigger over here. I'm probably going to trim those up some just to make them similar. The black tiles are close to the plain tiles now. I do have smaller red tiles like I showed you a little bit ago, but that's because I trimmed those up some. But these are all close. So I'm just going to kind of clean those up some and do some trimming. But then after that, we'll kind of get to a layout of what we want to do, and then go from there to start to attempt to build a mosaic. So I think the plan now is to attempt to lay out some sort of grout to stick them to this little thing we've got here. We've got a little circular backboard to attach these to. I'm not entirely certain how well it's gonna work, but I'm going to be putting grout on this and attaching the pieces of tile to it, and hopefully they will stick. We're gonna find out. This is all new to me, but we're learning together. I will be trying it this way, and then we'll attempt to do it a correct way after we've learned something and done some research. But so far, for it not being something I'm used to and know about, I think it's going okay. Yeah, so we got some pieces that are similar sizes now. And from that, we can try and put together what we're going to put together. If you've guessed what it is at this point, put it in the comments. But if not, I will show you very soon. So, plan here is grout I picked up at a craft store just like this, and the tile I got from online. The plan is I'm going to put some grout on this cardstock and use the pieces on that to kind of use it as a glue. But before that, I'm going to kind of sketch on here real quick so I have an outline of what I want to do. That way I can place kind of the important pieces and then fill in the rest as I go. That's the plan. We're going to see how it goes. So here what I'm doing is just kind of laying out a basic sketch of like what I want to have done here. And then we start placing these pieces. Now, in the original part of this, I'm just placing pieces wherever where I think they belong. And most of these pieces are similar sizes, but they're also not very close. They're somewhat close. And so I'm placing them the best way I think to do so. And kind of turns into a disaster eventually because I get some lines going and some nice stuff like that, but really it's not done super well. Kind of lose track of it and becomes this jumbled mess, which I'll probably say again later, but it just kind of, I lose control of it. I don't know what I'm doing and I just kind of fall apart. So here you kind of see the lack of experience in what I'm doing. I have no real flow to follow. I don't have any rules to follow or understand. I'm just going through and doing the best I can, following what I think are patterns and lines to the best of my abilities. And when it's done, you can understand that it's not really based upon anything, any certain form of art or design principles. I'm just kind of following the best to my knowledge of what a mosaic would look like, and it turns out okay, but it's not going to be anything amazing, and perfection isn't at all what we're going for. But we're just trying to learn and trying to ultimately fail and understand things by doing so. And so by going through here and doing it the improper way, or a way that's probably not as perfect or as good as it could be, I'm getting an understanding of what not to do, where I did mess up, where I think things could improve. I think that's a good part about learning, is like understanding the pieces that didn't go right so that you can learn from those to make them go right the next time. Well, I've finished laying it out. It looks okay. There's some spots that I'm not super proud of and not super amazed with, but I do think that I did an okay job. I started out here, did some nice lines to here, and kind of follow this around the edge, and then it kind of gets all jumbled and messed up in here. The middle, I was just kind of going in a circle, trying to make it look good. The top, I did try and follow this for a while, and then I went like this for a while, and then once again in the middle, I kind of just ended up doing whatever fit. So from what I know now, I have to put more grout at the top over to kind of fill in the cracks here in these little spaces. We'll also see how well this wood holds up, because I'm not sure it's exactly made for something like this, but I'm doing it anyways. So like I said, we're going to attempt to do this the historical way as well, and do some research and make sure we're doing it right, and attempt to do so in a style or format that is more historical and works better in that way. And we'll try and follow whatever rules or steps they have historically that they've followed. But we're gonna have this for our comparison, and this is kind of our setup. Me doing something fun, Pokeball out of tiling, and yeah. So that's where we're stopping for now. We're gonna grout up afterwards once it's all dry, and then we'll seal it and we'll see how it turns out. So here I start placing the grout over the top of this. I assume this is what is supposed to be done. I just take the grout, push it down into these spaces as best I can, and attempt to fill in the cracks to make it a smooth surface. Okay, so we have officially come to a point where I believe this is pretty well done now. This is as good as it's gonna get. I painted the edges, and so this is our first piece. It's not perfect. We can see all the issues we have with it, but we are going to be making another one now for my mom specifically. It's gonna be more detailed, and we've done some research on how to include some more classic ideas of mosaics and the structure of how you should be making it. So yeah, we're gonna be making a more classic mosaic and a more educated version of one that I have now learned about. But yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to try and put those to the test and my skills and knowledge that I've learned, and apply those to creating a beautiful mosaic. But yeah, so our first one is done. We've completed the initial test phase of, can we make one? We can. We've done that. We have officially made a mosaic. It wasn't overly difficult, but we definitely made a lot of mistakes and have learned a lot from it. In this part, I'm just going through and sketching out our new design on what we're going to be doing next. And for this one, I'm laying out a simple sketch on top of it this time that I can actually follow and use as a guide to place the different pieces and kind of give them flow and better understanding of actually where things break and where things disconnect. And from what I read in a few different things, I think it's the De Architectura. It's basically a guide to architecture and construction and art, and how things work and how they should be related to nature and how they flow through like that. And really interesting. I had to ChatGPT translate it from what it was, because it was all in Latin. But I think I would like to actually read it and go through it and see what else it says about architecture and construction and all these things. But basically, I learned a few basic things that I could learn about through that. I also watched a few videos about people that practice it today and that have had it passed down to them through knowledge and through different teachers and people in history. So going through and understanding these different concepts and taking them all in has kind of given a different view of what we need to do. All right, so this is the basic sketch of what we're going to do. The right side here has a sunflower kind of curving around the edge here to show movement with this edge. The wheat does the same on this side. I might add a few more pieces of wheat, we'll see. The cow in the middle is the main piece here. Underneath we have some wavy green wheat. That's kind of what we're gonna go for. We're gonna see how well we can get that to work. But then on top we have some clouds in the sky here, and we're gonna try and match some colors here in a second and try and make sure we have a good color palette that kind of matches and goes together to go for this. The cow is going to be white, pink in here, brown around the eyes and the ears. Sunflower over here, yellow, brown, green. We'll probably have some lighter greens going through down here. But yeah, so this is the basic sketch outline for what we're going to be doing. So I chopped the first piece here, and it got done pretty well. We're all kind of an even size here. Fairly decent, more cube-like, so you roll them, they can land on a lot of different surfaces. But it took like 30 minutes, and I got a lot of tile to go still. So I'm gonna try and figure out another way to chop the tile up in order to make it go faster, because otherwise it's gonna be like lots of hours doing this. So I'm gonna see if I can find some tools laying around that might be a bit better. So I have acquired a set of tools from my dad. He has let me borrow some classic tools, right? Chisel, this, clamps, things like that. Just kind of gonna mess around a little bit, try and figure out if I can find a better way to cut these, because realistically you would have something kind of like this to where you would have a nice edge, and historically it looks like what people are doing that have the knowledge passed down to them is take this and then you have a sharp hammer and you hit the edge on this where you're like where it's going to sit, so it has 2 points hitting it at the same time to give you a good break. I don't have that option right now, but that's okay. We're probably going to go back to the original way we were doing it, because so far what I've found is that it's not very doable because of the way I have to have things set up. I don't have a lot of options, so we're just going to kind of go back to what we were doing. Okay, so I'm wearing a mask because of the dust. I don't want to breathe in a ton of it. But we've cut up a decent amount at this point, and we've got about 7 left, so we're probably about halfway through it. I've kind of found a way to go a little faster, so it might be cutting down to like 15-20 minutes per tile, so it's still slow, but it's faster than it could be. All right, so we have got a lot of pieces chopped up and ready to go, and we're going to start laying them out. I did some initial laying here to see if I can kind of get an idea of what I want to do. I'm gonna be cutting pieces specifically to fit a little more here. How these are thin, how some of them are angled and triangles, things like that, just to make them all fit together. The sunflower is going to be an issue. We're going to see if we can get that to work out at all, but that's what we're going to be starting to do. Kind of rules of thumb we're following now compared to what we were following is that some of these are now more cube-like. They're supposed to be able to roll and land on multiple different sides. So it's supposed to be like, they call it cibus. I don't know if it's pronouncing right, but it's like a cube in Latin, I believe. And so the idea is that these all pieces, or tesserae is what they're called, I believe. You roll them and they should be able to land on the same spot like dice. Some of mine are a bit longer, so I will be trimming them. That's another thing I'll be doing, is trimming them to make them fit a little better this time, instead of just placing them and hoping for the best. I'll be kind of shaping them and making sure they fit better than they did in the first one. So it looks better and it looks more accurate also. But I do think that this should go fairly smooth. But yeah, so I'm gonna try and work with mostly cubes as much as I can. I do have smaller ones for like thin things like the wheat and the sunflower, and we'll be cutting a lot for the sunflower, I believe, for the petals, because it's going to be difficult. So we'll be trying that out. I'll spin you in here. Get y'all all tucked in. right in here, you can see I have a slimmer piece right here, and then it goes off. It kind of helps the flow here. So I came to a point where I had 2 rows going different ways, and then if I put a sliver here, it can kind of break off and keep the flow going. And so that's kind of one of the rules that I learned from watching people and like what they've been taught and the understanding of it. So if I follow that, sometimes you can use that to create like a juncture of you turn 1 and it slowly turns into 2 and 3 and 4 and just kind of flows out. Mine worked out to where I didn't have to do that. If I have one later, I'll show it to you. But this is kind of just how one of the things I learned is that you kind of use that to keep flow. And so here I'm showing the direction. I'll keep these directions going the whole way if I can, but if not, I'll have to change them and slim them up and do the reverse and have slim points like this. And so right here, it's split into 2 sections instead of the one that it was in. You can see that. And so I'll keep proceeding that way now and see if we need any more splits. More than likely, we're gonna need to go back into where we were with the splits we had and reconnect them to make them smaller. So that'll be an interesting transition that I haven't had the experience to do yet, so it'll be interesting. But yeah, cruising through. Now, realistically, there are a lot of different ways you can make a mosaic. There's a lot of materials you can use. You can use stone and glass and ceramics and all these different things. I went with ceramic tiles so I can chop them up, and it's a little easier material. I don't have to get a bunch of stone that I don't have super easy access to. I think it would be easier to work with as far as like getting pieces, but ceramic works out okay to where I can chop them into pieces that I somewhat need. I can get a lot of cubes or squares and triangles. But a few things to know about mosaics in the past is that some of them will flow more organically if it's like a natural thing, whereas if you're working with more of a structure or building, it would be more of a clean lines, straight angles, things like that. So it kind of gives you a difference in the flow of how a piece works, whereas naturally it's going to flow together well if it's living things. So ours will have much more of a flow than it will a straight line, angles, things like that. A lot of mosaics are built out of like found items or leftover pieces of construction, things like that. Whatever was available at the time or fit the color need of what they were looking for. But it also looks like if it was a very prominent piece or a very important piece, I'm sure they found the specific materials they needed for it to find the colors and the schemes that they needed. But a lot of times it seems like it was just leftover pieces of construction that were used to place into these. Mosaics go back for thousands of years to Mesopotamia, Romans, Greeks, all the way up to the Middle Ages when people were making them with different materials. It's important to note that mosaics don't have to be made by a certain couple of ingredients or a specific set of rules that they have to be followed by. You don't have to have glass, you don't have to have ceramics, you don't have to have stone. It can be multiple different things. It can be whatever you want it to be. But it's basically different pieces put together to create one full piece, all stuck together by grout or some sort of substance to keep it all together. Historically, if it was an outdoor piece, like a sidewalk or something that was going to get a lot of water, there were layers set up underneath it to make sure it was all set correctly and not going to fall apart as easy. Mosaics, like any other art form, are passed down to students from teachers or parents or grandparents, past their history, past their generations, in order to keep the practice of it alive and to keep people doing it and interested in it and making beautiful artwork. Now, a lot of that has probably been lost and broken down, but there are people out there that are still practicing mosaics today and building them the ways that they were built thousands of years ago. Mosaics have evolved and changed over time, and there are modern ways of doing them. And can you learn it from scratch or do it without any prior knowledge? Probably. I was able to do it somewhat with like some basic knowledge and some understanding of what art is and what it needs and the materials that I needed to go into it. But as long as you're going into it looking to create something or craft something beautiful, then art can be whatever you want it to be. But if you want to create a classic like beautiful mosaic in a style of a certain culture or a certain time period, then some research is necessary and some prior knowledge is necessary to understand and to create this with a certain flow or understanding of how things need to flow into each other and react to other things coming into contact. So yes, research is needed to have a better understanding to do a more immaculate job, right? But if you're just going into it for fun, to create something cool to give to somebody or to have for yourself, mosaics are possible. Realistically, you only need a short list of things. The materials to place into the mosaic to design with, you could probably get some tile or some rocks, break them up, and use little pieces to do so. It's probably pretty cheap if you could find the materials you wanted, look the way you want them to. You could always paint them like I did to make them fit better to what your ideas were. Grout to stick them in there together. Something to place it on. If you're doing it outside, do a little more research to understand where to place them, how to set it up, all that, make it waterproof. But if you're doing it inside and you have somewhere to put it, just make sure you do some research and set it up correctly, but the materials you need aren't super intense. The labor, it's a little intense, it's a lot of work. It takes time. I took a lot of time doing this, but it was fun. So make something for somebody you love. Do something fun. Go create something and fail and then learn from it. But yeah, it's fun, honestly. Like, it's just fun going through the process and learning and understanding at a better level of how people done this in the past and applying that. If you want to do it in the style of somebody else or a different culture, go for it. But if you just want to do it for you, just jump in. So I wanted to go in and look at these and get a good detailed look at like what we've done and how we've done so far. So going and looking at this, you can see that our details were less than great. It's kind of random, not super detailed in like pattern or flow, but still not a bad piece. Kind of chunky, different pieces and sizes. And we moved on to this, which is much more detailed, much more intricate, flowing through, having patterns, following detailed work, and just having a better grasp on what we were doing. The flow worked way better. The amount of detail we were getting into this was much better. But yeah, I think going through and learning what we did and getting a concept of how historically people have done it, the work that goes into it, how to set things up to flow right, how to make a mosaic in general. It's amazing to see the difference that you can make by just doing a little bit of research and having a deeper understanding of what's going on.
Oh, isn't that cute? Forrest, that is really good. Oh, I love it. It's great. You did an awesome job. That is so cool. Wow. I'm impressed. I had no idea what you were doing. Well, I kind of knew you were doing something with this stuff, but I didn't know it was gonna, that's awesome. Wow. Did you have a picture?
Yeah, I looked at some references and stuff online.
That's really great.
Yeah.
You did a wonderful job. Oh.
If there's anything that you think I should be doing or I should experiment on myself with and learn, then let me know. I would love to do it. Art, ideas through history, designs, things that people have done in the past, and then try and do it in the way that was meant to be done, because I would probably not do it the correct way the first time, but that's why we do it. So thanks for hanging around. Leave a like, comment, all that fun stuff. I'll catch you next time. See you.